Hello there, this one is going to be an update on my Porsche 356 SC engine build series. I got a new part. Some of you guys are critical about me never buying anything new. Well, if this checks out, I'm buying it. If not, I'm returning it. This is the new crankshaft. This is made here in California, and it's a forged crank, counterweighted, lightweight. It's the stock 74 millimeter stroke. So this is kind of a direct replacement for the SC crank we took out of there. So I'm going to evaluate it. A couple things I can see already. There's debris inside the journals already. The oil galleries on the main are boat-tailed, which should improve oil flow. That's nice. And on the rods, there's a pretty substantial chamfer to get that oil out and into that bearing journal. It's a nice touch. It's got threaded oil galley plugs. Does not include any of the nose gears on the front. This does thread in nicely. This gets torqued to a really high amount, so these threads need to be in good condition. The threads are certainly deep enough because it bottoms out on the dowel pins. And this surface here looks nice. This is where the #1 bearing, it's a thrust surface. So that looks right. Nice, clean spot for that to ride on. Of course, this gets replaced, but it does seem to fit pretty nice. We're going to measure those, don't worry. Once again, there's a bunch of crud in here. Meanwhile, the pulley fit seems fine. The pulley fit is almost a go without pressing. It just, you can wiggle it on there with just a little bit of force. That would go right on there. Might disassemble the other crank that I have that is also standard and see what the differences are on this diameter. For completeness, I need to pull that gear off anyways because I'm probably going to reuse it. This puller, I think, would absolutely pull these off, but I'm gonna go ahead and try to do an induction heat on the gear just to expand it just a little bit, just to make it easier and a little bit less wear on the parts. I have this induction heater from KK7s. I don't really love using impact wrenches on this stuff, so let's just go slow and easy. So yeah, that's got a fair amount of load on it. So next up is the heater. This is the button to energize it, so here we go. Starting to get a little smoke from the grease. And just like that, it's off. The crank doesn't feel too hot. That gear is still pretty hot. So I didn't heat it to obviously red hot. I don't want to ruin the metal. I just wanted to get it to about 200 degrees, which it was a guess. I think I got it pretty close, but yeah, we didn't do any damage to the journals or anything. So I think I'm going to try to pop out this key and see how it compares to the other crank. And then I'm going to measure this outer diameter and compare it to the SCAT crank. This kit comes with a lot of pre-made coils, which is great. Also, you can bend your own. That's what I did on this one. Here's one of the ones I haven't used yet, but that's enough to go around, you know, like 2 times, which is the minimum. So yeah, this is a cool tool. Check it out. I'll put a link in the description below. This is cooled off now, so no damage whatsoever to the bore on the inside. It's nice and shiny. I can measure this gear because other gear I had was a 911, but it was a pretty tight interference fit, so that's why I want to measure the old crankshaft versus the new one. This is the side that goes up against the bearing. It's got a really nice chamfer on that, so that should definitely clear the SCAT chamfer or the SCAT radius. No damage to the teeth with my puller. My puller is, you know, kind of a homemade jobber, but you know, it just grips the diameter without damaging the journal. So this did get hot too. This guy here is a brass punch, so we won't hit it too hard. Oh, that's my socket for the puller. It's just walking it out ever so slowly. I took 4 measurements there on that pretty long snout, and I'm basically getting 1.6536 is probably the average. So let's compare that to the previous crank. It looks like the original crank is about 1/1000 larger on the snout where the gears go. I don't know that that's a problem. The fit of this gear onto the new crankshaft, it fits tight. It's not like it's a loose issue, but it's going to require less pressing force on the new crank than it did on the old crank, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but that is a difference. It's about 1/1000 difference on this surface where the gear presses on. That is 1/2 thousandths of interference, which is easy to overcome. If this was heated up, it would slip right over. That's a pretty light interference fit. And then if we do a side-by-side comparison on this slot, this is the key I just took out. It's a pretty tight fit. I mean, it kind of goes in the same amount, maybe about 10% or so. And on this one, it goes in less. This one goes in, you know, maybe 5%. It stands right there, but I can tell you without measuring it that this slot is tighter than this slot. So I think it's going to require some, you know, finessing. Okay, for this next one, this one's an important one. This is the run out of the crank. It's supported on V blocks on both sides, and we're just going to spin it, and this is millimeters. So each of these lines is 0.01 millimeters. So let's see how true the crank is. I'm running outside of that guy, and I'm outside on this guy. So we're measuring across the entire crank how much it wobbles. Let's try that again. It's pretty much 34 all the way around. I'm going to switch the meter over to this side of the hole and do it again, but I don't think there's going to be any difference on that. I'm going to turn it from down here. Maybe it'll be a little more consistent. I'm pretty pleased with the runout. So it's less than 0.01 millimeters. The factory spec on a Porsche crank is 0.02 millimeters. So this is within tolerance and really quite good. Actually, it's worst case scenario too, because I think the factory wants you to measure between bearings 1 and 3. We're measuring between 1 and 4, and it's still, which is way out here on the nose, and it's still performing really well. So runout is A-okay. Last thing to check are really just the journals themselves. So I'm going to go through and do all the micrometer measurements, and I'll give you the numbers. I don't suspect that there's going to be a problem because it's brand new, but of course we need to check these things before we install it. These blue Sharpie marks are where I measured the crankshaft in really 3 places along its diameter. That looks for taper and problems with ovality, but being a new crank, I really don't expect there to be any issues with the crank being worn in any weird way. It's brand new. The nominal or blueprint dimension is 2.0864, and I'm getting very close to that. Rod number 1 is exactly at the blueprint. Rod number 2 is 1/10,000th of an inch below. Rod number 3 is pretty much right on. Same with rod number 4. So I'm just showing you the deviations from the blueprint dimensions now because everything is in spec. 2.1646 is the journal diameter for number 2, and I'm getting 1/10,000th larger. Bearing number 3 is exactly to blueprint. Bearing number 4 is 1.5739, and I'm getting 1.5734. So it's about 5/10,000ths below the blueprint. I have 9 measurements for bearing number 1, but the target is 1.9678, and I'm basically getting 1/10,000ths less and 1/10,000ths over. So on average, it's right about there. This is the one that has the most surface area, so I did a little bit more measuring on that. Got 9 measurements. So I'm happy with that. Next up is to put this on the scale. I'm getting a 20-pound total weight. This is considered lightweight crank, so 20 pounds is pretty good. In part 2, I measured the crankshaft weights. The SC crank was 21.6 pounds. So this SCAT crank is a full 1.5 pounds lighter than the SC crank. And the non-counterweighted crank from a C was 17.6. So this crank is somewhere in between the non-counterweighted and the counterweighted factory crank. Another crucial thing to check on these crankshafts is the journal radius. That's where the journal transitions into the meat of the crank. So I have these radius gauges, and they allow me to kind of eyeball what the radius is, and I'm getting, I think it's about 5/64ths of an inch. And everything is ground equally. So the rod journals, the main journals, everywhere that it's ground is pretty much 5/64ths of an inch. When I go back and look at my C crank, which is a factory crank, I notice right away that the radius is smaller. So in metric dimensions, it's about 1.6 for the factory, 1.98 or about 2 millimeters for the SCAT crank. We do need to make sure that there's enough clearance in the bearings. Like here on number 1, there's a big chamfer. So the larger radius on the SCAT does not affect bearing number 1 at all. But we'll need to check all the bearings and make sure that the larger radius doesn't interfere with the Porsche bearings. If so, we'll need to clearance them. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the crank pulley slot. The Woodruff key fits a little bit easier in the factory C crank than it does in the new SCAT crank. It does appear that the slot width on the crank is okay. This retaining clip fits in there pretty well, about the same as this fit. The other thing I can do is suspend it like I did the previous cranks. And I have this tool on my phone it's a guitar tuner, but it tells me the vibrating frequencies. I'm getting 4,700 hertz. Now I'm inspecting those areas that I can see burrs within the crank journals. I'm just looking to see if this is a polishing compound or if it's really a piece of metal that's in there. So I'm able to pull out the little scrap of piece of metal there. It's probably an 1/8 inch long and it's magnetic. So this is certainly a burr from the drilling operation when this crank was made at the factory. Debris like that in a brand new crankshaft, in my opinion, is unacceptable. I think it should have been taken care of by the factory. So it's not the end of the world, but it does mean that I need to go and pull out the galley plugs and go down inside the holes with like a long reach carbide or grinding stone and dress the area where those two holes intersect. That's a potential for burrs. And clearly there's burrs there and they do break off. So if that breaks off while driving the car, it would absolutely take out one of the bearings and scratch up the crank and kind of self-destruct. So I'm kind of surprised about that. Like I said, not the end of the world, but I think in total, I give this crank at best a B. It's really good at the finish. The runout's great, the sizing is good. The issue I have is the debris inside. I have an issue that this is a little smaller than the factory crank. That's where the gears go on. Not a huge issue, but I'm gonna have to spend time, dressing the slots and putting a tiny little radius on them so there's no stress points. That needs to be able to slip in without just cramming it in the slot. I don't want to do that. It means it would be really hard to get out in the future. So have to spend time on that. So I'm probably going to keep the crank. It's the best one I have, but I don't know if I should fight with the guys in Oxnard and complain about the debris in there or just do like most engine builders do and fix it themselves. So I don't know.